Hey, and welcome into the Big Ten Huddle. Today, I'm going to be talking about bold predictions for the Big Ten in the 2025 college football season. It's early, I know, but why not have some fun? Why not go bold a little bit and talk about some things that could possibly happen? Maybe I wouldn't predict them to happen, but they are bold and they could possibly happen for the Big Ten in 2025. From playoff contenders to potential recruiting shakeups, this season is shaping up to be one for the ages. So buckle up, hit the like button, subscribe as well, because things are going to get bold. First up, this might sound a little crazy. In fact, some of these are probably going to sound a little crazy to you, but 7 Big Ten teams will still be in the playoff conversation by November. That's right, 7. It's no secret the Big Ten was the best conference in college football last year. If that momentum continues to carry and they start getting the respect they deserve nationally, they will have even more teams vying for playoff spots in 2025. Let me explain. Ohio State, Penn State, and Oregon, right? No brainers. Those are going to be most likely very likely potential playoff contenders. Ohio State and Penn State have favorable schedules leading up to their clash November 1st, and Oregon faces Penn State and Indiana prior to their November games. But that's about it, right? The first college football playoff rankings will come out following those Week 10 games, and I'm going to go ahead and consider any Big Ten team in those rankings in the playoff conversation. So you look at it, those teams are probably going to be in the playoff rankings at the very least. I think there's no doubt that barring a terrible collapse, all 3 of those teams are absolutely ranked. Barring like something terrible happening, those are going to be ranked. Then there's Indiana and Illinois. Indiana made the playoffs last year and have more respect going into the 2025 season. They've got a much tougher schedule leading up to November than what they had last year, with games against Illinois, Iowa, and Oregon. But I think they can win 1 or 2 of those games and stay in the conversation. Illinois, on the other hand, has a good shot to make some noise if they handle Indiana and maybe pull off a win against USC or Ohio State. They'll have credibility by November and be ranked probably in the top 12. Michigan and Nebraska round out the 7. Michigan's schedule in 2025 is much more favorable. I cannot express that enough. It is much more favorable for them than last year's schedule. But it does start out with 2 road games in the first 4 weeks, 2 cupcake games, and then road matchups at Nebraska and Oklahoma. Those 2 games that 2 games that I'm sure don't put too much fear into Michigan fans with how their season ended up last year, with how those teams' season ended up last year. But both teams should be much improved. And if Michigan does start Bryce Underwood, those will be 2 big time road environments for him to step into. If Michigan goes 4-0 or even worse, 3-1, they should be in a good enough position to drop none or just 1 game until November and still be in the playoff discussion. Nebraska is a sleeper pick here. I'll explain why a little bit later in this video. I have another bold prediction about them, but let's just say Matt Rule's team is ready to turn heads in 2025. Stick around for that one, Husker fans, as I'm going to mention to you a little bit more. But before I do that one, 7 teams in the mix for the playoff in November. Mark my words, the Big Ten is about to get the respect they deserve. Big Ten fans who want to see more of Notre Dame, this one's for you. My number 2 bold prediction, and I predict that before the 2026 season kicks off, Notre Dame will enter a 3 to 4 game scheduling agreement with the Big Ten. Now I know what you're thinking. Notre Dame loves their independence, and they do. I'll get to that in a second. But let's look at the facts. In 2025, Notre Dame already plays Purdue and USC, 2 teams from the Big Ten last season. 2 teams from the Big Ten and 2 teams from the Big Ten last season. And look ahead to 2026, they're scheduled to face Michigan State, Purdue, USC, and Wisconsin. We'll see if those stick, but that's 4 Big Ten teams, and the groundwork is already laid. Geographically, it makes total sense, right? Excuse me. Notre Dame's always made more sense in the Big Ten. Rivalry-wise, the opportunity to play USC, Michigan, and for some who consider Ohio State a rivalry makes sense, not to mention the existing TV deal with NBC, which covers both Notre Dame and the Big Ten. That's a huge factor. With the ACC becoming less competitive, Notre Dame's schedule will need bolstering. They've already acknowledged that this as a part of their new scheduling agreement that is under discussion. Rumors are that they will play the ACC's biggest brands, Florida State, Miami, and Clemson, more regularly in football. But the question has to be asked, does this really save them Florida State was a nothing game last year. They were terrible, awful. Clemson made the playoffs, but only because they beat a former G5 team in the ACC championship game and got lucky because outside of the ACC they got spanked by every non-G5 team they played. And we're really going to think Miami is promising because they bend every rule the NIL. Every rule in the NIL they can. It's not sustainable. Let's just put this to rest. The ACC needs the Notre Dame more than Notre Dame needs the ACC. It's not that way with the Big Ten, which makes the Big Ten a perfect fit in my mind. Finally, it's clear that after their last playoff run, Notre Dame doesn't need to share the money with anyone anytime soon. The Irish earned $20 million for their 3 bracket wins, far more than any other team in the field, as the program received $4 million for qualifying for the college football playoffs, $4 million for advancing to the quarterfinals, $6 million $6 million for making the semifinals, and $6 million for reaching the national championship game. That is the maximum you can make as as there was no additional payout for winning the national championship game. Additionally, the team also received $3 million in each round to cover expensive. Typically, these type of payouts for CFP success go to the conferences rather than the individual universities, and that money gets split up between all of them. But because Notre Dame's football team does not belong to a conference, it gets 100% of the revenue that they make there. That's a huge incentive to stay independent, right? But eventually it's going to get harder and harder to guarantee big games on their schedule. Their solution is clear. Get in on the Big Ten action. All right, coming back to you now, Husker fans, okay? Cornhusker fans, dial back in. Number 3 is that Nebraska is going to win 5 one-score games this season. I know it sounds crazy. Because Nebraska has struggled in close games, going 5-22 in one-score games since 2021. But I'm here to tell you that 2025 could be different. What's the reason for this sudden turnaround? Well, Matt Rhule and his track record. In his 3rd year at both Temple and Baylor, Rhule turned losing teams into 10 or 11 win programs. And a big part was winning these nail-biter games. Nebraska faces several winnable but tough Big Ten matchups, including against Michigan, at Minnesota, Iowa, and many, many more. Matt Rhule has the dudes on this team to do it. He has some really good players, and he has the coaches to do it as well, bringing in multiple high-caliber players and also adding Dana Holgorsen to the staff. And that 3rd year at Baylor I mentioned? Yeah, Matt Rhule just so happened to win 5 one-score games in that season. Could history repeat itself? We will see. But next is my prediction number 4. And Iowa fans, this one's for you. Iowa will be top 50 in offensive yards per play. Iowa's offense was much better and much improved last year after their offense had been stagnant in recent years. Iowa's offensive transformation starts with one man, Mark Gronowski. The transfer quarterback from South Dakota is a winner, plain and simple. He wins. He has that kind of mentality. He has that kind of aura. With over 10,000 career passing yards and 37 rushing touchdowns, he's got the dual threat capability to spark this offense. Plus, Iowa's running back duo of Kamari Moulton and Jazz Patterson, they showed flashes last year in 2024 when Caleb Johnson wasn't in. Combined with returning wide receivers Jacob Gill and Reese Vanderzee and their improvement that could come from this offseason, with offensive coordinator Tim Lester, he finally has some tools to succeed like they did in 2010. I know, 2010, right? Which was the last time Iowa was in the top 50 in yards per play. They were 23rd in the country and averaged 6.2 yards per play. That was when you had Ricky Stanzi's 3rd and final year starting at Iowa. They had 2 rushers, Adam Robinson and Marcus Coker, who gained over 600 yards on the ground each. And they also had, wait for it, they also had 2 wide receivers gained 744 yards or more receiving on the year each. For my final bold prediction, I'm looking at recruiting. All right, this is a big one. And it's going to be a strong year for the Big Ten in recruiting, I believe. I predict that the 5 Big Ten teams will finish in the top 10 in the 2026 recruiting rankings 24/7 composite. Here are the 5 teams: Ohio State, Michigan, Oregon, Penn State, and USC. Ohio State already an elite recruiting program, nailing top 10 classes year in and year out. Don't have to talk about them. Michigan and Penn State have popped up from time to time. In fact, Michigan was top 10 this past year in the 2025. And with the addition of USC, who pops up from time to time, and Oregon, who is farming top 10 classes under Dan Lanning, this is very, very likely. Ohio State under Ryan Day has been a consistent top 10 finisher in recruiting classes, and that's not changing anytime soon. Michigan is still enjoying some of that national championship buzz that they had from last year and is loaded with momentum and some newfound NIL. Thank you, Larry Ellison, for giving them that opportunity. They paid a lot of money to Bryce Underwood, and although their transfer portal class has some disappointing misses, we need to acknowledge that. Sounds like the Wolverines will be allocating many of those NIL funds to recruiting. We'll see if that rings true, but that's what we hear so far. This was a huge reason why, excuse me, this was a huge reason why they jumped to top 10 in 2025 and will continue to be in the top 10 in 2026. Also, Penn State already has top prospects. Kevin Brown, Messiah Mickens, they are both committed, and they're only going to build up from there. If this national championship hype for the Penn State Nittany Lions holds true, we could see them continue to build throughout the year and pull off some late flips at the end. USC is probably the boldest prediction here. I'll acknowledge that. That is probably the boldest one. But forgive me, I believe in the Trojans. But with their revamped recruiting staff, in addition to new general manager Chad Bowden, who came in from Notre Dame, they could crack the top 10 in 2026. USC has no problem getting guys to commit, right? They've had top tier players commit. It's about hanging on to those commitments throughout the entire cycle. Their NIL is strong. Their NIL is strong there too, which would help fix many of the issues that did plague this team in the past. And as far as it goes with Oregon, need I say more? They are a recruiting machine because they have one of the best recruiting staffs in the nation in college football with Nike money behind them as well. This should be an absolute lock as a top 10 team. With these 5 teams leading the way, the Big Ten is poised to dominate not only on the field, but in the recruiting wars as well. And there you have it, my 5 bold predictions for the 2025 college football season. Will all of them come true? Probably not, but one thing's for sure, it's going to be a season to remember. What are your bold predictions? Drop them in the comments below. If you guys drop enough of them, maybe I'll go through and kind of assess some of your bold predictions. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more Big Ten football content. Thanks for watching, and I'm sure I'll see you next time on the Big Ten Huddle.